Transportation gets people from point A to point B. With pressures of climate change, it is vital that cities and regions continue to plan for transportation options other than single occupancy vehicles. Public transportation is one such method. Currently, public transportation takes many forms: buses, light rail, trains, subways, streetcars, van pools, and many other modes. While these networks are in widespread use, budget and peak capacity constraints have pushed municipalities towards alternative transport solutions such as active transportation. Active transportation, walking and biking, was the first form of transportation. More recently, it has emerged at the forefront of planning to address issues of health, equity, and pollution.
We were all pedestrians, and we were all pedestrians at the beginning. And as transportation became more mechanized and there was a search for more efficiency, that's how we started thinking about other ways of getting around that were faster, not necessarily better, but faster. And enter the internal combustion engine, enter the electric engine, the electrification of cities, and then you have mass transportation, and of course the automobile. So we've come full circle to rethink about how we plan cities for activity, for movement around them that is not detrimental to the environment, and for movement that is more fair and more open to many people. And this is how pedestrian and bicycle planning has come to the front stage again of city and regional planning.
Active transportation interacts with other forms of transportation. Often, people walk or bike as part of a multimodal trip.
It's also important to think about these other modes of transportation and how pedestrianism and bicycling connect to these other modes. They could compete with them, be substitutes. But to be frank, the vast majority of transit users get to transit by walking, and so they are pedestrians to begin and end.
I really like BART. Actually, my favorite combo is the bike plus BART because I think really the only drawback I see to biking is showing up and being really sweaty somewhere.
Yeah, riding the bus is also free, but I tried it out a few times when it was raining last year, and it takes me probably 15, 20, 25 minutes longer to get here on the bus. And I get a little stir crazy by the time I've been sitting on the bus for 45 minutes, so it's just nicer to be outside.
Active transportation is a planning issue that warrants greater attention and funding due to its many benefits.
There's a lot of literature looking at the impact of walking on health, and we understand that the more we walk, the more physically active we are, the healthier we become. So the risk of dying from any cause, including crashes, mortality risk from crashes, decreases as we're more physically active. What's even more interesting, it's at the beginning when we're sedentary, it's just getting us going, that's where we get the most benefit, the most reduction in risk.
I force myself to bike to campus sometimes just to think about how much sitting I did the day before. Like tomorrow I need to exercise, and I definitely think of it as a way to start my day with movement.
So why aren't more cities and local governments focusing on improving active transportation infrastructure?
I think the biggest obstacle is, and probably always will be, funding. Finding funding for these projects. No infrastructure is cheap. Even though bicycle infrastructure is cheaper than most forms, it is always difficult to find money, wherever it may be, to fund these projects. The second biggest opposition that we have, I would say, is people who don't want to lose car parking in the city. That's something that we deal with constantly. People are very attached to their automobile parking, and unfortunately there's only so much space on our streets.
Additionally, active transportation can have unintended consequences.
In my research, I'm to a certain degree kind of critical of some of the reasons that cities are excited about active transportation, because it's wrapped up with being able to attract more growth, which is, the benefits of growth are rarely equitably distributed.
Therein lies some of the unintended consequences and the conflicts that one has seen between, for example, bicycle planning and these neighborhood communities that don't want, for example, bicycle share facilities or separated bike lanes going through their area. This is happening in the Mission District, it's happening in Minneapolis, it's happening in Washington, D.C., in Chicago. Communities might not have the language to exactly express what are some of the motivations for the pushback of these facilities, but often embodied in things like gentrification and expulsion of residents.
This shows why planning issues cannot be isolated. They are all intrinsically interconnected efforts, which require collaboration to ensure that implemented policies have the intended positive outcomes while minimizing the unintended consequences.
And what's your general opinion about bike boulevards, biking infrastructure in Oakland, Berkeley?
I really, what is my opinion on bike boulevards? I really like bike boulevards actually.